Hell to the ziggy 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 ziggy. Alright, get that shit out of here. Hey, what's up everybody? This video is about the Washington Redskins. Every year the Indians, the real Indians, Native Americans, protest about this name change. So that's what this next video is about. It's a research about the Washington Redskins and should they change the name? The Indians say that if the Indians want it, then they should. And so check out the video. Okay, so let's take a look at the history of the Washington Redskins. Okay, the Washington Redskins was founded by this man, renowned racist George Preston Marshall. He was born in George Preston Marshall was born October 11, 1896. Died August 9, 1969, and his family made their money. They owned a chain of laundromats, so that's where they got their wealth from, being in the laundromat business. George Preston Marshall he founded Boston Braves, the Boston Redskins, and Washington Redskins, 1932 through 1969. George Preston Marshall's legacy includes the George Preston Marshall Foundation, which serves the interests of children in the Washington, D.C. area. The $6 million he left had the qualification that none of it could be used for any purpose which supports or employs the principle of racial integration. Marshall gained infamy for his opposition to having African Americans on his roster. According to Professor Charles Ross, for 24 years, Marshall was identified as the leading racist in the NFL. Though the league had previously had a sprinkling of black players, black were excluded from all NFL teams just 1 year after the Boston Braves entered the league. That's the team he owned. While the rest of the league began signing individual blacks in 1946 and actually drafting blacks in 1949, that was right there. Wallace Triplett went to Penn State, was the first black player drafted in the NFL. Marshall held out until 1962 before signing a black player. That player was Ernie Davis. Ernie Davis was also the first African American black player to win the Heisman Trophy. And Ernie Davis said that he refused to play for that SOB, George Preston Marshall. He refused to play for him. So they sent him to Cleveland and traded him Bobby Mitchell. So Bobby Mitchell ended up being the first black Redskin football player. That's a picture of Vince Lombardi with Bobby Mitchell. Vince Lombardi went to the Redskins after all the championships he won with the Green Bay Packers. He went to the Redskins and coached there, I think, 1969 until he died. Even he couldn't help the Redskins win the championships. Okay, the decision of the Redskins to draft Ernie Davis was a reluctant one by Redskins owner George Preston Marshall. For years had refused to sign any black players, and the Redskins were the last NFL team to do so. He was a notorious racist and backed his decision by stating that he wanted to appeal to the NFL's southern market. The signing only came when Interior Secretary Stuart Udall, this guy, issued an ultimatum to Marshall: sign a black player or the Redskins' 30-year lease on the D.C. Stadium, now the Robert F. Kennedy Memorial Stadium, would be revoked. That's funny. The stadium was the property of the Washington city government. Marshall's response was to draft Davis. Davis refused to play for the Redskins and demanded a trade. In turn, a trade to Cleveland was engineered by Browns coach Paul Brown shortly after Art Modell had purchased the team, and without the knowledge or consent of Modell. Anyway, this man forced George Preston Marshall to draft the first black player. Redskins. There's a picture of RFK Stadium named after Robert F. Kennedy. It's facing the Capitol. One time, jokingly, George Preston Marshall said he'll draft a black player when the Harlem Globetrotters draft a white player. Ha ha. Not funny. But anyway, he said that. Okay, so let's get to this Redskin stuff. In 1933, George Preston Marshall, the owner of the team, which was then located in Boston, renamed the Boston Redskins the Washington Redskins in honor of the head coach, William Henry Dietz, born August 17, 1884, died July 20, 1964. This is where the controversy comes in. People are saying that Dietz is an imposter. The legend of Lone Star Dietz. This guy was an imposter. I mean, come on. Let's start with they call him an imposter, citing accounts that Dietz was a German-American from Wisconsin who wanted to play football as an Indian to cash in on the fame of quarter athletes such as Jim Thorpe, his good friend. Dietz also served jail time for dodging the draft during World War I because he falsely registered as an Indian. Ding, 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 ding. That's one. William Henry Dietz was born in 1884 in the village of Rice Lake, Wisconsin, to white parents, according to his birth certificate and census records. He would later put down Rice Lake as his birthplace on his marriage certificate, although he also listed Junior One Star as his mother. Ding, ding, ding. That's two. Here's some more about Henry Dietz. Dietz's true identity remains highly controversial, although he is recognized as an Indian athlete by Daniel Snyder, owner of the Washington Redskins. Indian Country Today Media Network ran a series of articles in 2004 exposing Dietz as a white man masquerading as an Indian. In 1988, the National Congress of American Indians attempted to meet and discuss the issue with the team's former owner, Jack Kent Cooke, but Cooke refused a meeting. Imposter. That's Jack Kent Cooke, one-time owner. He's the one who moved the Redskins from RFK Stadium to FedEx Field. Okay, that's Dan Snyder. The legend of Lone Star Dietz continues. Dietz named himself Lone Star after James One Star, the alleged nephew of an Ogola Buffalo Bill performer, sometime after the 1904 St. Louis World Fair. Dietz Indian heritage was first contested in 1916, way back in 1916, after former neighbors who settled on the Pacific coast heard he was posing as an Indian. In December 1918, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, looked into his heritage after he fraudulently registered for the draft as a non-citizen Indian with an allotment. The Bureau found he had taken on the identity of James One Star, an Ogola man of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, 12 years his senior, who had disappeared in 1894. Dietz also falsely claimed he was the head of an American film company that produced propaganda films for the year. Okay, Dietz was married to this lady right here one time. This lovely lady, Angel Decora. That's her right there. Who was a Native American. She was a real Indian. And anyway, they say Dietz divorced Angel Decora in November of 1918, charging her with abandonment. It is not clear how much she knew about his true identity. She died 6 days after his indictment. Sad. Dietz was tried in Spokane, Washington in June of 1919 for the first offense. One Star's sister, the man who we claim he was, who had died 12 years earlier, he took his identity. One Star's sister, Sally Eaglehorse, testified that after seeing him for the first time at the trial, that Dietz was definitely not her brother. Still, the judge instructed the jury to determine whether Deeds believed he was an Indian, not whether it was true. Alright, so I'm gonna wrap this thing up. But here's my thing. If George Preston Marshall, who was a known racist by all accounts, and he named his first team the Boston Redskins, well, who did he name that after? Not this Lone Star Dietz character. Anyway, if he was a known racist, then why would he make this guy a coach if he was an Indian? Because the racists don't like Indians either. And the way he's surrounded by all these white guys just looks fraudulent, in my opinion. Especially for way back in 1918. I think the guy's an imposter. All the facts point to it. Look at all the trouble he got into for being an imposter. So I'm gonna wrap that up. Alright, the Dallas Cowboys and Washington Redskins feud started right here. Prior to the formation of the Dallas Cowboys, there had not been an NFL team south of Washington, D.C. since the Dallas Texans folded in 1952. That's the Dallas Texans helmet. Oil Man Clint Murchison Jr. Right there. That's Clint Murchison Jr. and Lamar Hunt. They had been trying to get an NFL expansion team in Dallas, but George Preston Marshall, owner of the Washington Redskins, had a monopoly in the South. So Murchison had tried to purchase the Washington Redskins from Marshall in 1958. An agreement was struck, but as the deal was about to be finalized, Marshall called for a change in terms. This infuriated Murchison, and he called off the deal. Marshall then opposed any franchise for Murchison in Dallas. Meanwhile, George Preston Marshall had a falling out with Bonnie Breeskin, who I cannot find a picture of, but he's the guy who wrote the music. That's his wife, Bonnie Breeskin's wife. He wrote the Hell to the Redskin music, and George Preston Marshall's wife, Corinne Griffith, who was an actress. George Preston Marshall married a couple of movie stars. Anyway, she wrote the words to Hell to the Redskin. Hell to the Redskins, hell victory. Praise on the weapon, fight for all to see. So anyway, when Marshall had that falling out with Bonnie Breeskin, angry with Marshall, Breeskin approached Murchison's attorney to sell him the rights to the song before the expansion vote in 1959. Murchison purchased Hell to the Redskins for $2,500. and told George Preston Marshall that they could not play the song during the football games. So the Redskins couldn't play their own song. So anyway, after a few Marshall and Spleeters Murchison gave the rights to Hail to the Redskins to Marshall for his vote, the lone one vote against Murchison getting the franchise at the time, and the rivalry was born. Ha! So that's how the Cowboys got in the NFL. They bought the copyright. They bought Hail to the Redskins song and told George Preston Marshall that he couldn't play it at his games. So George Preston Marshall got his song back, and the Cowboys got in the NFL. Okay, that's Jack Kent Cooke, who became the new owner after George Preston Marshall, founder and owner, had a stroke. Jack Kent Cooke bought the Redskins in 1974 and built a new stadium and moved the Redskins from RFK to FedEx Field in Landover, Maryland. Redskins won 3 Super Bowls with Kent Cooke as the owner. And ironically, was the first team to have a black quarterback to win a Super Bowl, being Doug Williams. And that's Doug Williams, the only black quarterback to start and win a Super Bowl. It's funny how life is. The last team to draft a black player in the NFL was the first team that a black quarterback, won the Super Bowl in the NFL. Ironic. So what they should change the name to, a better name should be the Washington Rednecks. So next time you see somebody walk around with an R on their hat, tell them, you know what the R stand for? Yeah. It ain't Redskins. It's Redneck. Or if you even want to go a step further than that, tell them that R stand for the Washington Races. Peace. Go Cowboys. Oh yeah, one more note. The Washington Bullets changed their name to the Washington Wizards back in the 90s when DC was the murder capital. So it can be done. So, what are your thoughts about the Washington Redskins changing their name? I feel like this. If they could make a deal with the Redskins, Native Americans, maybe let them play football or give them some kind of job in the front office, I don't know. But how many Redskins, how many Native Americans, how many Indians have you ever seen playing for the Washington Redskins? I can't name one. And that coach, way back in the day, he was an imposter. So, I mean, I say that if the Indians want the name changed, change the name. Or hire some Indians and let them be part of the team. So, what's your thoughts? I'm out. That's my research. Peace.